with that. Yeah, so there we
Okay.
go. Great. Yeah, so I found out about the new cosmology in like 92. So that's like 30 years now. So, and of course it grabbed me and overtook my life and probably saved my life, really. So got into the work of Brian Swift, Thomas Berry, Matthew Fox, was lucky enough to go to UCS and CIS and spent summers at Holy Cross Center for Ecology and Spirituality in the late 90s. And then started working with Joanna Macy, became a facilitator. Anyway, like all of you who are passionate about the new cosmology, you know, I really was aware that if I hadn't just happened, somebody gave me a tape by Marion McGillis, and then I was at a May Day fair and I heard this woman talking about listening to this nun on tape, and I said, wait a second. Then her husband turned me on to the Canticles of the Cosmos. And so anyway, I just felt like if I hadn't heard any of that or been, you know, how would I know? I'd still be terribly depressed, fighting for social justice, not being very successful. So of course, my passion was then to try to share it. And trying to share the new cosmology is a little hard. It's so out of the matrix in which we live. I mean, even now, the matrix is so, that's why we do ritual and read poetries. And what Gail just shared with us brings us right back to, you know, remembering who we are in the larger picture, that we are the larger self. Anyway, so I wanted to share it. And the best way I came up with was video discussions, because with a video, you're on the same page. So even if nobody knows what you're talking about, well, the Canticles of the Cosmos right away grabbed everybody like, wow, this is amazing. You know, and then other videos later on, Journey of the Universe, Awakening Universe, Joanna Macy's videos, whatever, all provided a context for us to talk. And so a couple of the things I learned about video discussions is I didn't ever, hardly ever would show the whole video. I would stop it and discuss and come back and discuss, because there's just so much. Even now, if I see or even read the Dream of the Earth, again, a paragraph even out of that, I'll go, oh, that's right. There's always something new to learn. It's just amazing. So, and I'll talk about more of that. Actually, doing the video discussions was good, and then pairing it with Joanna Macy's work was really good, because then it's like not just in the head, it becomes part of the body. So I would always incorporate some of her exercises and rituals and breakout groups or small groups, and eventually started doing ecozoic groups, because people would get together, watch the video, talk, and ultimately share their concern for the planet and climate crisis. And then we would end up being more of a group working together on political things or community gardens or whatever. So, but what I wanted to talk about more today, because I'm a little concerned, I don't know that I'll be able to do video discussion groups or small groups. I think with the variants and the COVID, we may be, and I don't want to believe this is true, but we may be limited now to, you know, the internet. So I'll share with you what I've been doing the last couple of years with the internet, and that's I've been working with the Deep Time Network and helping them facilitate and come up with classes, but I've also done 2 study groups through them. And is Bob here?
Yep.
Oh, there you are. Okay, hi, Bob. Yeah, so he wrote down, I did 2 study groups. One was a Thomas Berry one, and the other one was a Journey of the Universe. There you go. So through Yale University and most major universities, Coursera courses are available, and a lot of them are free. And these 3 are through Coursera and Yale. Mary Evelyn Tucker and John Grimm put them together, and they're excellent, really excellent. So through Deep Time Network, I did a study group, and we came together every week, would do all the homework, And it's pretty full. There's lots of video, lots of reading. A lot of people pretty new to the new cosmology felt overwhelmed. But it's really a wonderful way to get people together online and really start devouring the new cosmology and sharing it. And just, Bob, if you want to do the other one, if you decide to do something like this, or if this is speaking to you at all, there's a way to get on Coursera. It's a little tricky because if you just hit free, that doesn't really get you there. You have to audit the class. So if anybody's interested in doing something like this, please contact me and I'll work with you. I think it's a wonderful way. I've suggested that our alternative school in Silver City do that with their senior class. They have an environmental group in their senior class, and I think it would be wonderful for them. So I'm talking to the guy who's doing that right now. So yeah, so that's what I've been doing the last couple of years, and I think it's exciting. Before that, I was doing the last group I did in person before COVID. I did a group, and you can take that off, Bob, if you want to. I did a video discussion group called Climate Crisis and the Wisdom of Thomas Berry. And what I did is I showed the great story, which is Thomas's, a video about his life. And if you watch that video, it breaks it down into numerous things that he's discovered about the old story and the new story. And I'm just excited about the idea of that, because people fighting for climate justice, it just seems to me like they kind of should know why we are in the mess we're in. Not that we're bad people, or that we're an evolutionary mess up. It's just how evolution worked and self-reflective consciousness works. So I'm excited about maybe people who are involved in climate justice learning the new cosmology, or maybe doing workshops, educating them about why we are where we are and where we might be able to go in the future. So, and around that time, I also started doing a number of active hope workshops. And again, I would intermingle, usually the night before I do a video discussion, always showing the awakening universe, so people would have a sense of the story of the universe. But the active hope workshops seem very important. And I know that, Gail, you're excited about where we are, and most of the time I am, but people are really worried about where we are. Knowing the new cosmology gives us hope. So it's just super important, I think, to have things available to people to talk about active hope and where we are in the new cosmology. And I'm almost out of time, but that kind of sums up what I've done and will do. And I just wanted to close. Bob has on the screen, if you will, the last one I sent you. Yeah, the steps for active hope. And in a sense, it kind of goes along with Nat's fourfold wisdom, if you will, always starting with gratitude. So if we start our day or anything out with gratitude, all of a sudden we are expanding and we have all this space for other things. And then so important to honor our pain for the world, this worry that we have, this depression we have, this sadness we have. Joanna likes to say so many of the solutions are in those feelings, allowing ourselves to have those feelings. And that just kind of moves and shifts to see with new eyes. Then we can see that we're not alone, number one. Lots of people are having those feelings, and that there probably are solutions in there, or ideas or imaginations. And that takes us to the great going forward. So anyway, we're going forward, and thank you all for listening, and I'm glad to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Thank you for all that work on behalf of the world and its peoples and life forms.
Thank you.
So next we hear about from Penny. He's going to introduce Mark Steiner.
I'm thrilled to welcome Mark again to Creation in Crisis. Mark is a community organizer extraordinaire and has just given so much of himself to creating celebration and community. He's co-founder and director of Cultivating Connections in Louisville, Kentucky. Mark has facilitated classes, workshops, ceremonies, and large community events for nurturing and celebrating a sense of connection with each other and our world. Recently, Mark has approached his work with a renewed energy and spirit, and we've asked Mark to share what has inspired him to reinvent his work. And Mark is another one who's connected to Joanna Macy and her work. So welcome, Mark. Looking forward to it.
So delighted to be back with you all, and so appreciated Shirley's presentation. Our similarities are great, Shirley. I think we would have a lovely dinner together. Yeah, so I really appreciate the opportunity and the invitation to think about how the nature of my work has changed. And I'd say it definitely has been evolving and ever changing by both circumstance and necessity. But let me start by coming from that place of gratitude and just expressing my gratitude, my gratefulness for the circumstances and privilege that allow me to show up in the world in a variety of ways. It is certainly a privilege, and it comes out of privilege. And let me also express my gratefulness for the community that has held Cultivating Connections for almost 30 years now, and my gratefulness to having had the opportunity to host programs with some of the most influential voices in the movement, right? Joanna Macy, Matthew Fox, Jean Houston, David Corton, Winona LaDuke, Brian Swim, Julia Butterfly Hill, Joanna Macy, Adrienne Marie Brown. That's a mighty group of folks. But things have definitely changed, and over the last several years and throughout COVID, it's been less about events. And instead, I've been very busy doing other things, producing the monthly Cultivating Connections e-newsletter, which uplifts local events that share our values, serving as a lead coordinator and president of the annual Louisville Earth Walk. I serve as keeper of the 4 element street puppets created by the marvelous artist Mary Plaster. Earth, water, fire, and wind live in my garage and occasionally get to come out and show up at public events. And I've been serving as an advisor and adult supporter of the Kentucky Youth Climate Strike, and before that, the local Sunrise Movement group. And in that work, very consciously and literally passing the microphone to the next generation. I also work very closely and as a member of the coordinating team with Louisville, showing up for racial justice and participate in actions on the street with that organization. And I think it's important to acknowledge, because it really has been a force of change, that about a year ago, I had a significant change in my work life and left the youth-centric work with the Peace Education Program to working with the Association of Community Ministries, supporting the efforts to deliver emergency assistance to families in need. And this includes managing an awesome team of folks behind what has become the nationally recognized Stop My Eviction program here in Louisville. And I mention that in particular because doing work that is that heavy has definitely impacted the type of work and my capacity to do work outside of work. So I want to also say that coming from this tradition that honors our pain, I have to acknowledge that the last few years have been, for me, as for many, a very challenging time. Chaos, loss, suffering, injustice, more loss, on a scale that I've not known in the course of my life. All of this in that hard sea of COVID, right? All this within this context of isolation and a great societal withdrawal. And so this has also been really hard on the movement. I also want to note that I'm living within the ecosystem of Louisville's corrupt, racist police department and the murder of Breonna Taylor. Throughout the upheaval of the last year and a half, earth and change have been my constant companions. And so let's talk a minute about change. These words from Octavia Butler. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. I'm going to repeat that. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. Those are the words of Octavia Butler, a science fiction author who is no longer with us. These words and the wisdom behind them have helped. Embracing the reality and power of change has helped. Some of this change is rooted in responding to the challenges of living with a local mind in the global age, right? No generation before us has been asked to hold so much information, so much suffering. The Quakers would say, at a time that if it was before you, it was your bundle. And now all the suffering in the world is before us, and it can't all be our bundle. How do we choose what is our work? I think this is a great struggle. I also want to acknowledge the way that change is rooted in responding to these tensions between priorities. We are without existence without planet Earth. And yet the need to fight for racial justice is so strong. How do we manage these priorities? This is another great struggle. And I want to acknowledge change in the sense that we are living in the emergence of a deeper understanding of balance and of self-care and what people in the movement call mutual aid, and how important this is for us as individuals and for the collective. So many movements have suffered and been less successful in their work because of that lack of self-care, right? So my other companion, Earth. I have made a very conscious decision to root myself in Mary Oliver's 4-line poem, Instructions for Living a Life. And I really honestly believe that if I knew nothing but this poem, I would do okay. Instructions for living a life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. I think it's all there. And as a result of the holding that value, of paying attention, I've experienced the most beautiful fall I've ever experienced this year. The trees were so gorgeous, both filled with leaves and the leaves gorgeous once they fell onto the ground. A beautiful fall. I was out working in the yard the other day and witnessed a dance of geese overhead like nothing I've ever seen geese do before. Several groups converged over my head and seemed to negotiate a new union and a new direction, right? All while making a heck of a lot of noise. It was a delight to witness. And so I just want to express the importance of continuing, for me, to uplift that role of human as celebrant and the impact this has on how we show up when we show up. For me, it is just essential to find the beauty, to see what is beautiful before us, to find the yes, and to celebrate that. And this really has invited me to show up in new ways, including how I run and participate in meetings. I'm just always looking for that opportunity to celebrate. So I really am questioning the continuance of what has been. I'm questioning the roles that I have been playing. And that's definitely impacting how I am going forth. In response to all this change, I'm changing. I'm pruning. I'm letting go. I think about Julia Butterfly Hill, who I had the honor of spending some time with, and how she climbed up in that tree, and she thought she might stay there for a week or two. And yet it became 738 days. And then she reached a moment where she knew it was time to come down. And so I've been thinking about how knowing when it's time to come down is grace as much as knowing when it's time to go up. And so I've come to realize that I'm ready to pass the mic in other ways. And in some of the work I've been doing, I'm stepping way back. And after 30 years with Cultivating Connections, we are closing our doors. We just sent out the final edition of our monthly e-newsletter on Tuesday. And today I'm exploring how the gifts I bring to the world are changing again and waiting to see what is possible in what we all hope will be a post-COVID world. There's my piece.
Oh, Mark, thank you. Well, very strong to hear it from a person, you know, this, I'm sure for other people too, the echoing of the experience of being inside COVID and trying to continue our passions. Yeah, I'm sure others will. We'll have time to ask you a question later. Sure, others have felt that the stridency of trying to decide whether to work for racial equality or, you know, earth care, which comes first. Thank you. So, Jane Panther, are you here yet? I didn't see you, but I saw some people with 3 people sitting on.
Yes, she is.
She's
She's
here?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, Jane, you're next. Okay, I'll read your introduction and then Bob will help you show your videos. Okay, Jane Genway Panther received your MA in Creation Spirituality in 2006. In the 60s, she was a registered pharmacist and a part of a holistic health clinic in Santa Barbara. Jane's most intense work of the past 30 years has been with the Ascended Masters, 23 years of which were with the Saint Germain Foundation. The videos she is presenting come from her work in transformational theater, facilitating dances, recording melodies, singing, humor, yoga, etc. I am activity, she says, and what Hafiz names the marvelous theater of freedom. So, Jane, do you want to say anything before Bob shows your videos?
Well, just to say that Gen Y is the name that most people use with my my work and myself. I do have a website and it's called silkartcreations.net. I'm more known for the silk work I've done at expos, especially in France, where the universe of creation spirituality with Jim Garrison, the Ubiquity University, is who takes me to France every summer with the silks and with my work that Andrew Harvey calls mystic cabaret. So yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Okay.
goddess. And I'm also tearing down the cruel walls that have separated me and others from the tenderness of sacred fire. This beautiful painting is the fire angel within me, within you. And she reads from Hafiz, set the temple of my body on sacred fire. Burn the thorns and make of me a bower of roses. Oh yes, Mademoiselle Narcissiste de la Résistance. What is she resisting? She's resisting the life that she came here to live. She's resisting the signature genius that is only hers, right? Squashing and squandering the life force by putting that density, the density of shadows around occluding the electrons of light. My sister said I should have been a preacher. My brother said, don't put the burden of the world on your shoulders, but we have to. The climate is in red alert. That means that our disobedience has caused these bodies and this planet and the beautiful powers of nature and the forces of the elements to be imposed upon with that darkness that's leaking the pure life elixir that is coming in every moment. And if we keep distorting it, it's going to take a long time, and you won't be invited to stay on this planet, because we're going into the paradise that was always meant to remain here and keep expanding its love, expanding its joy, expanding its freedom for everybody. Don't you want to be there? Collaborating with the evocateurs of a finer ideal of entertainment. It's up to you. Silly, huh?
Would you like to add anything, Jane?
Well, I want to stay within my 5 minutes, and I just wanted to say that last little logo, we just clamped those two little pieces together. I have a bunch more of videos that are from 3 to 12 minutes, where I have different aspects of the work that I share. And that little clip, the last one especially, was kind of an addendum for an art show. And at the end, the logo speaks to what I have been dreaming of, and I wrote my thesis, or my thesis project for Matthew Fox, and my master's degree was called Consummate Artist, the consummate artist in each one of us. And the piece that I promised that I would do after graduating was called Eve's Apple Redeemed, after that painting that you saw, that last image. And it's many aspects of the journey, and that logo has my silkartcreations.net, the website that I have with the silks, and it also will be a place where, if anyone wants to see more of those videos that we did last month, I'd be happy to share them with you.
Can people find them on your website?
Can they find the videos?
Yeah.
No, not yet. We're just editing them because they were all kind of run together, and now we're separating them. We'll have them on like on Venmo or on that other,
Vimeo or YouTube. right?
or YouTube. We'll have them on one or the other, and people can check them out. You know, they have different names because that first character that in the red was Mademoiselle, I call her, from my time in France, and she's the articulation of the one that's still caught in the human dilemma, the narcissiste de la résistance, the narcissist of her own resistance to love, to joy, to purity and perfection. And then the next character is called Doña Quixote, and she's a 12-minute piece, and then this little clip that we added when the videographer had not turned off the camera. What else can I say? Yeah, if anybody has any questions, I do have my telephone number on that logo, and it's 310-699-0392, and I'm here outside of Santa Cruz, California right now in a beautiful yurt of friends, and so I'm on the West Coast. Did I say it all?
Yeah, so you are and your silks are beautiful. To go to
Thank
her website, the silks are incredibly beautiful. So you take these silks and you use them as a background, a part of this performance art that you do on behalf of consciousness raising, on behalf of spiritual grounding, and on behalf of the earth and its future.
Yes.
Did I name that right?
And I'm on Humanity Rising many mornings with Jim Garrison for 300 and some days, you know, where he has been pulling together panels. I don't know if you know about Humanity Rising, but Jim Garrison was offered the presidency from Matthew Fox back in 2006 when I was graduating. And as I said, the thesis project was called The Consummate Artist. So a lot of my work, both in the clinic that we started, the Holistic Health Clinic in 74 in Santa Barbara, has been about how to get to the causal level of dis-ease and be able to liberate that energy so that our creativity, our unique offering as a consummate artist, each one of us, you know, with something that no one else can bring forth, that energy is liberated so that beautiful genius can come forth in every one of us. And that's what I work on. But a transmutation process, taking the anger, the resentment, the fear, the doubt, the selfishness, as the masters call it, and being able to remove that occlusion of the density from around our electrons so that the frequency of our bodies is raised and the light can come back through, and we don't distress ourselves or fail to fulfill the great divine plan of our unique destiny and of the unique destiny of our country and the world. But like the goddess of liberty says, you know, like the removal of the change called death is the big thing, you know, so that we end something that was never the great divine plan. And yeah, I could go on, but some of those little videos describe some of this as well.
Well, thank you, Jane, very much.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
And
It's beautiful.
wonderful experience, your energy and this fresh form for communicating what we want to communicate. So thank you so much.
Yes, I just to say that I have been holding that alignment for at least 30 years, you know, to be able to put the silks behind me, and they've been behind everybody else at the expos and in France, but to be able to actually step in front of them with what I want to share, with what my presence wants to bring to life.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Sharing, another kind of artist is definitely a ritual artist, which is Carol Kilby has offered to share some of her work. It's so fascinating to see how varied we are working on the same issues and hopes. So Carol is an author of a book called Evolutionary Dancer, Out, In, and on the Fringe of the Church. She's a retired Christian clergy, a refired citizen of the cosmos, and an uninhibited promoter of evolutionary elders drawing attention to the climate crisis. You in your small corner, and she in hers. She's a mother, grandmother, and a great aunt, and she's allured to the work of creating evolutionary rituals for the evolution of consciousness and a culture free of planetary abuse. So Carol, thank you.
Hello, everybody. It's so nice to see some faces from 20-some years ago. When I went to UCS, I resonated with one of Mark's struggles in terms of knowing what our work is in these times. And so a phrase came out of me when I was writing the book that I it was in making a choice about that. The church I was part of was very, very much about social justice. And I discovered, what do we do first? Do we teach a woman to fish? What's the sense when the waters are polluted? And that really focused me. That really guides me. So I'm bringing some 5 images for our 5 minutes, and I'll just talk a little bit about what each one reflects. And the first one is something that some of you who had a course with Larry Edwards might recognize. This is me in a very small, wonderful congregation telling the story of stars as scattered stardust from dying stars that were resurrected into new planets and stars and then allured into a communion of the Milky Way, all with salt. This particular ritual, as well as communicating the immensity of the universe of which we're a part, this act puts the whole Christian story into the cosmic story. A story in which, since the beginning, there has been birth and death and resurrection. This ritual and a number of the others that I experienced on my journey have brought me to a place where I realize our rituals in the church have to help us evolve in consciousness. And only recently have I come to name that this is part of the ecozoic liturgy. This is part of the great work. I'd always disassociated liturgy and work inside the walls with the activism that took place outside it. So this is quite a discovery for me. The next image is my own creation of the 13.8 billion year timeline, the cosmic story, arranged for an Advent candle lighting ritual. Like, traditionally, we did that ritual around a wreath, a circular image of God's unending love. But when you do it in a spiral, this symbol of a still unfolding universe, of a universe that's an incarnation and a manifestation of the cosmic intelligence, aka God, this changes everything. It turns our prayers of petition for hope and peace, joy and love into intentions. because we are incarnations of this story. And so we become intentions creating part of a field of energy. And our intentions in lighting these candles then are for the lithosphere and the biosphere and so on, leading to an ecozoic era. And the light becomes our commitment, our intention to that path into the ecozoic era. And so rituals in this way can be eco-activism. The next image is that particular picture that was in my book with the ritual. Become real off the page in a sanctuary in Welland, Ontario. And here a clergy recreates the ritual, and she adds an introduction to her congregation. Socrates said humanity must rise above the earth, to the top of the atmosphere and beyond, for only thus will they fully understand the world in which they live. So here's my ritual coming off the page and expanding, just like the spiral says, all things expand in our universe. And she wrote about her own congregation. This year, we are evolving into something new, and may our Advent wreath take a new form, a spiral symbol of the ever-expanding, ever-evolving, ever-moving reality into a greater sense of wholeness. So I've discovered in the last little while that writing can be a form of activism. As we move to the next image, I'll just mention a friend who's here on the call, Marianne Maruska, and she was on my shoulder to cry on, and that whatever propped me up as I was writing the book. And she said to me often, "It looks like your book has a lot to teach you." And so that's been so very real for me now that it's finished and now that it goes forward into the world. So you'll recognize, if you've taken the new cosmology or spent any time with Miriam McGillis, the universe story laid out as a spiral. So this particular clergy, Christina Paradella in Welland, Ontario, created that universe story from these beautiful fallen red Japanese maple leaves, and of course intersperses it with candles. And we were doing a workshop together called Advent or Adventure, based on the book. And here we are teaching cosmogenesis, and we're holding up a contrast between Advent as a time of preparing to celebrate Jesus' coming, or the adventure of cosmogenesis as a time of cooperating with our own becoming, with all things becoming, with becoming a species, of human earth mutuality. So there was the church on this particular workshop day doing eco-activism and certainly consciousness raising. So you can see why I call them, and I'm excited about evolutionary rituals. The last one that I will show you is also from this particular church. And so she has added to the table the earth ball. Here is this geological symbol of the planet. And she's raising consciousness, saying this: our story is embedded in a larger story. And she's placed the earth ball below the Christmas star and behind the nativity scene, saying the earth reminds us that our birth story is part of a cosmic story, a cosmic birth story. So these are just a few samples, a few pictures of some of the rituals that I have been creating and co-creating with others to say to the world, the universe story is our sacred story. And with that story, we all become activists and part of this great work. I suppose as we move back to gallery, that I would say that the book has caused me to open a website and to blog and to hold evolutionary ritual events. And I seem to be quite a hustler in terms of creating opportunities for myself to get out there because I really believe in this stuff. And I receive so much from it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol. Carol mentioned Mary Ann Maruska, who's also brought some of her artwork to share. And so, Mary Ann, would love to see your stuff next. Her Endangered Madonnas. Mary Ann Maruska received her Doctor of Ministry from Wisdom University in 2008. Formerly a graphic designer and college professor, she started painting icons in 2014 when Barbara Susan Booth, who's here, invited a British iconographer teacher to Canada. Mary Ann says, I am happy to have found iconography as a mode of artistic expression as it weaves together several major threads of influences in my life. My Catholic childhood with its rituals and saints, the training of eye and hand as a pre-computer graphic designer, and my journey as a spiritual seeker. I think of the icon as a sacred space with which the viewer is invited to enter and experience. Mary Ann.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to Barbara Susan Booth, who is mentioned. And also to Carol for nudging me towards doing this today. So Bob, if you could show the first one, please.
Wow, I love it.
So I'll be showing 5 of these. Each panel in the Endangered Madonnas series shows our planet, Mother Earth, one orb among billions floating in the dark sky. She is presenting one of her myriad of life forms, a female mammal and offspring, through her widening birth canal. Emerging along with their habitat, the mother and her daughter both look us in the eye, challenging us to connect with their experience and asking us to behold them with the same respect and reverence as we might a traditional Madonna and child. So I'd like to show this one and 4 more and speak briefly of each mother's habitat, motherhood, and threats. So this endangered mother is the polar bear. The preferred habitat of polar bears is the Arctic ice pack. Its pressure ridges provide the best place to find the seals they hunt. In the winter, a pregnant female will dig a den into the snow where she gives birth, usually to twins, and remains with them in hibernation until the spring. A solitary animal, she will provide all the parental care for 3 years. The cubs will reach sexual maturity at 6 years, and their lifespan is 25 years. Polar bears are threatened due to the reduction of Arctic pack ice due to global warming. The next one. This is, I don't know how to pronounce it for sure, the red-shanked Duke langur. And they live in the vanishing tropical rainforests of the Annamite Mountains of Southeast Asia. Highly social, they live in family groups consisting of an adult male, several females, and lots of children. Their lifespan is also 25 years. A mother's pregnancy will be about 6 months, and she will suckle her single offspring for about a year. The baby clings to her mother from the minute it is born, learning from her their great repertoire of communication patterns. Endangered by deforestation, hunting, and the illegal pet trade, with snares being set not only on the ground, but in the canopy where they live. That kills me. Just awful. The next one, please. Koala. Native to Australia, koalas live in eucalyptus woodlands and live on the eucalyptus leaves. With a lifespan of about 15 years, they are nocturnal, solitary animals and sleep 20 hours a day. Every year or so, a mother gives birth to one tiny joey, they're called a joey, who crawls into her pouch and develops there for its first 6 months. At 9 months, the joey leaves the pouch and rides on her mother's back. 3 months later, she is weaned and her mother shoos her off. Koalas are in decline due to habitat destruction caused by agriculture and pesticides, droughts and bushfires, urbanization and highways. The next one is the beluga. The St. Lawrence Estuary beluga population, just down the river from where I live on the St. Lawrence River, is isolated from other whale populations, a relic of the last glaciation. They are very social, vocalizing and playing constantly. Like humans, they can live for 75 years, reach sexual maturity in their teens, and undergo menopause in their 40s. About every 3 years, a mother will give birth to one calf after a 14-month pregnancy, and calves nurse for 2 years. Belugas are endangered as a result of commercial whaling, which was banned in 1979, pollution, reduced food resources, and habitat degradation, including acoustic contamination by whale watching. And finally, the sloth. Sloths spend most of their time hanging upside down, motionless in the trees of the tropical rainforests of South and Central America. They live for about 25 years. Just about every year, a mother sloth will give birth to one baby after a 6-month pregnancy. They will stay together for about 5 months, and the baby will learn what to eat by licking her mother's lips. Threatened by habitat loss, electrical lines, and poachers, 2 species of sloth are endangered. So I first exhibited the endangered Madonnas on Mother's Day 2020, so last year, and they are currently on display in the Thousand Islands History Museum. There are a lot of other animals I could have chosen and might still do. The rhino, the elephant, the gorilla, the lion, the caribou, the marmot. And they just break my heart. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Marianne. I'm feeling heartbroken. They're powerful. They're powerful, how beautiful they are, and the condition that they are in right now because of us. Thank you for doing that work. Our next presenter is a poet, Nancy Cosgriff. I think she's also a singer, but she didn't put that on her bio. But Nancy graduated with a D.Min from UCS in 2007. She taught for 14 years in universe story and divine feminine programs through Wisdom Ways. She's now been in a poetry group for 14 years, and she has 2 poems to share with us. Nancy?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm thrilled to be here with all of you, and I've just been so enriched by everyone who's spoken. The first poem I'm reading is Crex Meadows, and it is about an experience I had about an hour north of where I live. I live in Minnesota, but on the Wisconsin border. So there's a 30,000 acre wetland and nature preserve right on the other side of the border up there, and it's called Crex Meadows. So here is here's the poem. I went for the cranes, to see them high in the twilight sky with wings spread wide and legs dangling as they flew fast to land before sunset. Raft after raft of them swooping up and down, evenly spaced to ride each other's current to land on muddy edges of marsh. I found the sky to see it streaked in black and red against a lighter screen of shell pink and waves of undulating coral, clouds lowering in a long dark sheet perfect for silhouetted cranes merging their huge black wings to move as one. I heard the sounds, meadows filled with cries of cranes compelled by instinct and intuition, connection to each other, to sky and wetland, each their arduous flight toward the warm sun of their survival. Always impressed and affected and inspired by the earth, by the world around us. And these poems for me are about experiences that I've had, but also that talk about the evolution of things in ways that aren't perhaps so direct, but are certainly present. So I'm going to read this one quickly and then maybe have time for another really quick one. Falling upward, where do the oak leaves go after they fall? What color does their rusted brilliance become? Turning into papery ash under my feet, I feel they have spent themselves tirelessly in receiving and giving. Last spring, they opened to our sons a green gift flowing through branches, trunks, and roots, planted in black dirt and breathing new life in and out. They moved in even rhythm into this blazing harvest. Walking now on earth, each step a blessing. I remember those before me loved and missed, and look up to see already early evening stars telling me we shine on, leaves and all. Perhaps in the end, we exchange places with the dark night sky. And I'm just going to take one more minute. River story. I ride on.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but something is hitting your microphone, so sometimes we lose some of your words. So
yeah, I bet
I just want to, yeah, okay, because I want to hear them at all. Yeah.
Thank you. I bet it was my papers. Okay. I ride on this river, holy by its very being. Its bed dug from earth by glacial ice and stone tens of thousands years ago. Its birth gradual and painstaking through seasons of melting cold and warm rains, beginning as most things from humble elements, small streams springing from rocky northern soil, before gathering power as it sweeps southward, carrying swifter waters. My grandfather rolled logs on this waterway before he grew wheat on the North Dakota plains, before this wild and scenic river was declared so by esteemed lawmakers. He walked the 6 miles to the logging camp wanting work. For a few bucks a day, an Irish farm boy out of Wisconsin stepped to the bidding of world wealthy lumber barons. With his long-handled hook, he nimbly maneuvered each felled giant white pine clear of death-dealing log jams. Jumping quickly, one by one, he freed them to catch their wild ride on speed racing currents down to small towns and big cities of Minnesota commerce. He knew sacredness of summer heat and sweat, found cool relief in being washed in whirling water, and saw beauty in its tannin-colored flow and red Indian paint brush borders. So too did the native peoples before him and before French missionaries named it Holy Cross. As they made nomadic passage through the river's wanderings and found refuge in wind-bent trees and flowing grasses on its bluffed edge. And for its offerings of fattened fish and plumper berries, its sensory suggestion of something sacred, they called this plenty the Great Spirit's gift. River, river, river. Today I paddle on water, carrying lost memories of generations, hearing whispers of ancestral blood sounding through me and calling me to recognize myself and all of us in this ancient, holy water. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you. It was beautiful. We're going to take we're having such a beautiful role here. It's such a glorious offering that I think we're going to, Kathy, go with you next. From what I know of both you and Penny, I think this will work well. So Kathy McCall. Kathy is a retired family therapist and writer who lives in St. Simon's Island, Georgia, with her husband. She is working on changing her behavior to Mother Earth's betterment and encouraging others to do the same. The lives of her 9 grandchildren inspire her to keep on keeping on with that behavior change. So Kathy, would you tell us what you're doing?
Yes, first I want to say I feel so much gratitude for taking part in this today. The sharings have been so enriching for me and inspiring. Thank you. I feel like, as Mark said, you know, where do we put our energies, etc. And I get overwhelmed holding the knowledge that I have of all the suffering in the world, that it sort of immobilizes me. And with a couple of my friends, we've been talking about that and how we need to do something about the crisis in creation, but haven't known quite what to do. So I'm glad to, you know, be here today and share with you just a few simple things that I've done. It helps me to not feel so guilty because I know I'm doing something. And I sent 2 pictures. Maybe you could show one of them. One is I use this laundry detergent. It comes in strips, so there's no plastic involved. And I've started buying a lot of it and give it to friends as gifts and family members as gifts, or if I'm invited to an occasion, I'll hand some laundry strips to people. So that's part of the education that I'm trying to get, to learn more about what's hurting the environment and what wonderful things are being created to help heal creation. Another thing I do is I've been reading and trying to educate myself. I really like this book. It's very simple, a good gift for people, I think, because it just, each page has something in it that is practical, that can inspire you or just give you some clear indication of a behavior that you can change. And that's really about it for me. But I will say that after listening to all of you, I'll definitely be doing more and more. I have a lot of gratitude for Matthew Fox. I've been reading his work for years and years and years. And he came here 2 years ago to give a presentation that my husband had arranged. And it was wonderful to be able to tell him how much he's meant to me and affected my life journey. So thanks, everybody. That's it for me for today. One of my friends says, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, one of my friends joked the other day and she said, yes, Kathy, you're trying to change the world, one load of laundry after another.
Okay. So that also saves on oil and transporting. It's not heavy like the water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our last presenter is our Penny Andrews, one of our co-hosts here. And she is an activist and an intellect and passionate about the cosmology and about the work that reconnects and about creation spirituality. She has a deep hunger for the truth. She's worked with Joanna Macy. She's one of the leaders of Joanna Macy's, one of her groups. There's the work that reconnects. She's a facilitator. And also in the Deep Time Network now, she's really become involved and she's getting a certificate in that, but also just kind of culling everybody else into the process at the same, because she finds it, and I have learned from her to find it too, that it puts a framework and around creation spirituality that we don't want to forget. We started with the universe story as part of it's one of our 10 courses that we have to take in order to get our degrees, because it's starting with that first story is so important. So Penny is really championing that these days. She's also now on the Creation Spirituality Board, and taking her fervor and her network and all of her imagination with her and her energy. So Penny has something else she's excited about now. And Penny, would you tell us about it?
Yes, thank you.
Mm.
I've been waiting, as I would imagine many of you have been, for the murmuration of we humans. How are we going to be called to come into alignment and into forward motion? And it's my hope that what I'm about to share, and the video will take a little further in your understanding, is a step towards it. I know we all have great groups, and I'm seeing some of them listed, and there are many, many more. There is great work being done, and it's all necessary, and it's all hands on deck, in a way that our consciousness as human beings has never experienced before. So a few weeks back, the Bioneers held a virtual conference, and Bill McKibben stepped to the mic and shared his next project. He's working with Akaya Windwood as a consultant at this point to create what he calls Third Act. And there's a website, thirdact.org. And he talked about how he came to this next phase of his work. And it relates back to that huge climate march in New York, which he was instrumental in organizing. So he's a movement builder. And he told the story that when they saw the people coming and coming and coming, they wanted to get a feel for who was showing up. And rather than ask, how old are you? They asked, who was president when you were born? And to the largest part of the bell curve that showed up, it was people that were born under either Truman or Eisenhower. So I'm guessing the calculations are going on in your head, and if you aren't in those two, you're right around those two. And so his thinking, and maybe I'll just let his video, his 3-minute video, do the basis of what I'm excited about in hearing his call to gather, calling to murmurate. Bob, can we have the video?
The third act. This is the place where experienced Americans, those of us over the age of 60, come together to make progressive change. We know that we're in some danger of leaving the planet a worse place than we found it, and we do not want to have that happen. We've got the skills and the resources to make a huge difference, to back up the young people who are calling for real change. In the first act of our lives, we got to participate in or bear witness to fundamental and profound transformations in our society.
Back in the day, we were marching for gay and lesbian rights and civil rights and farm worker rights and the end of the Vietnam War. We were born in a time when all things were possible, and we knew we could change things. And we did. We deconstructed a lot, and that was crucial work. But I think that as a generation, we have been largely quiet and asleep, and it's time for us again.
As we go into our third act of our lives, we've got to be ready to stand for the change that we know needs to take place.
Elderhood is not a time for stepping back, but for stepping up, for stepping into your own power. Becoming an elder is both a precious gift and a serious responsibility. I want to act in such a way that my descendants might be grateful for me. There are so many societal messages that tell we elders, your time has passed. Third act says, your time is now.
Many of us who are now older, in our third act, we're still needed. We need it now more than ever for our wisdom, our passion, our love.
And it's time for us to bring it. Let's come together as a generation, as a stunning group of people who have tons to offer, and do it differently together.
What us elders do with these last decades of ours has never in history been as important. We're needed. Our children need us. The future needs us.
Please make your third act a powerful one.
I invite you to join me to make your third act matter in a moment when it could not matter more.
So if all of this touches your heart a little bit, look for that big red button up top that says Get Involved. If you get involved, we will be in touch and tell you how you can be a huge part of this work. Thank you so much.
Please join us.
So this is in such an infancy stage that if you go to the website, check off your interest, and you'll get on their mailing list. And next week is their first virtual conference. It'll be Tuesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time. So it's that new. And it's also not asking more of us than we have to give, but asking us to give what is ours to give. So you can select where your interest or where your strengths are and what you can bring forward to this movement. And just to let you know, it's a little different than other movements, in that the principles behind it are be kind, be humble, be inclusive, really, boost others, take care of yourself, back up the youths, be generous, but not to a fault, be accountable, be creative, and we're all in this together. So it's, and I'm very excited to know that my contact in Indiana from the Elder Climate Action Group is moving their energies to support this. So, and the two targeted areas that they're going to advocate for initially are banking, which the youth have set their targets on because it's banking that funds fossil fuels, and then voting. And as all Americans here, and I'm sure anywhere you live, you've seen, our voting is in deep trouble right now and needs to be defended. So in that spirit, it can't hurt any of us to sign up. They're asking us to reach out to our networks to do the same thing that I'm doing right now, is sharing that this is a really good step towards murmuration. And it doesn't mean we have to change anything at all. It just might mean being in contact with where they're asking us to steer energies. So thank you for listening, and I hope you go to thirdact.org and see if you find yourself there being drawn in. Because as one who, and Mark, and there are probably several on this call, as someone who, when the Earth Charter came forward and it listed the groups that or the ideas that had to move forward together for a sane future, we can't pull one thread without pulling a whole lot of threads. And this is about good trouble, being good trouble. So thank you all for being here today and this beautiful sharing. Thanks, Gail.
I thank you, Penny, and thank you, Bob, for the perfect job you did with all those images. That was quite a bit to keep track of, and thank you. You did a beautiful job. We appreciate that, and it is time to end. And sometimes we didn't get to ask questions because it was so full and rich. But if anybody wants to chat a little bit afterwards, you certainly may. But our formal program ends now. Thank you all for coming. I took down your name so I can send you the chat, because there's just a lot of information there that I think you may want to have. Okay, so.
Gail, you want to tell about next month?
Oh, yes, I do. Matthew Fox is coming next month. The first Thursday in January is January 6th. And so it is the day of infamy, he says, and the day of Epiphany, which is in the Christian tradition is the day of when the three kings arrive to give their gifts. So it's a time of giving gifts, but it's also a time of taking seriously what happened. And he's going to have some things to say to us about that. And I hope you all join us. We have your email and we'll send you out. It's the same link always. And we'll see you next January.
And in the spirit of what happened today, please be in touch with Gail or Bob or myself if you've been inspired, if something about what you're doing or wants to be a sharing. Let us know. Let us know. This has been extraordinary.
It has been extraordinary. It's so, yes. Thank you for sharing and inspiring the rest of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, everybody. It was
Yeah.
terrific.
Yeah. Mm.
Nancy, your poems are wonderful, but they're especially wonderful because of your readings.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. All of the things today were heartwarming and heart-filling.
Yeah.
And Gail, I'm sorry you didn't get a chance to do what you had planned to do. So you bumped yourself to include more people. So I thank you, but I hope you could do it another time.
I'm understanding that this is part of my activism. I am trying to be a little bit more, not to say assertive, but just intentional about doing it more often. So thank you for that support.
Mhm.
Let me just say, if you're hanging around a little bit, you might want to put yourself in gallery view so you can see everybody at once. If you're not already there,
Are we finished recording? Are we done with that?
can do.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
I need to step out.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice to have you all here.